Ask me what I had for breakfast.
What did you have for breakfast?
Funyuns. And I will not be taking any questions at this time. Thank you. Roll the music, Rick.
Oh, do you care to elaborate outside of the cold open, my love?
I don't have to because I'm gay. And if you ask me any more questions, that makes you homophobic.
Right. That makes total. Welcome, everyone, to I Think Not, where we make the rules and that there are no further questions.
I didn't make the rules. God made the rules. It's in the Bible. 1 Thessalonians 5:17, which says, don't ask gay people questions. It will not end for thou.
That was the only one. I am Ellen Marsh. Across from me is Joey. And don't talk to him or answer questions, or you will be a homophobe and tried accordingly. We're I Think Not, the podcast where we recap your favorite true crime episodes, episode by episode. Most all of you are going to be happy to know we have moved on from bizarre murders. I don't know. I'm going to miss it. What about you, my love?
I will not be missing that. Although last week, all of the characters came back for it. The gang was back together again.
Someone called it a family reunion on our Facebook page.
Someone somewhere was like, oh, God, I thought we got rid of all of these.
I actually said on our Facebook page, could you imagine if last week's episode was someone's first episode?
Yeah, that was a lot.
And they were like, this is a no. It would have been a no, but now it's for sure a no. We have chosen a new series for you all by your recommendations. Drumroll, please.
It is Caroline in the City, starring Leah Thompson from the 90s. Big. I used to love that show.
I don't think I saw a single full episode. Kathy Griffin was on it, wasn't she?
No idea.
Okay. We're going to be covering Married to Evil. You all, the problem with these shows, it's a really good show. And we're going to start right at the top of season 2, right, Joey?
Yeah, we are. And if anyone knows about being married to evil, it's my sister in the Lord, Ellen Marie Marsh over here. She was married to Beelzebub.
Now, don't forget, we will be covering Married to Evil here on the general feed, dropping every Wednesday morning. But if you want just a little bit more of us, and by a little, I mean 4 whole episodes a month, that is 1 a week that drops on Thursday, you can head over to our Patreon, where there are hundreds, if not millions, of episodes there from all your favorite shows.
And currently, we are covering Gypsy Rose Life After Lockup and 1 episode of The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. You know, it's so interesting because I've been seeing discussions in the Facebook group about Gypsy Rose, and it really is and will continue to be a polarizing figure for everyone.
Season 2 is wild, you all. You know, we covered season 1 here on the Patreon, and this is all about her pregnancy and her new husband. I don't know. It's crazy over there. You can get all kinds of perks and fun stuff like movie night inside our close friends circle on Instagram. We also have paint parties. We have our merch boxes. We have monthly Swamp Talk episodes, which is just a chance for you to get to know us a little bit more. You can also participate and sit live on recordings. Any kind of fun that you want to have with us, we will do it, and that includes butt stuff.
And Patreon members get early access to our tickets for our live show, and that may be happening.
Do you think it's happening? Like a live tour?
Only one way to find out.
What if you're on the Patreon? You get
first dibs.
First dibs. But all to say, there is something for everyone over there. Go and take a look. You can also look into our merch boxes, which we put great care into. You can head over to patreon.com/IThinkNot.
But listen, if that's not for you, that's okay. We will see you here every Wednesday, and we're just glad you're here.
Well, let's dive into this episode, Joey. Married to Evil Season 2, Episode 1, One Deadly Dose.
Well, our subject today is Maria Munoz, who was born in 1989 in Puerto Rico, you lovely island of tropical breezes. I could use a tropical breeze right now. And also, if y'all don't know this, My sister in the Lord over here played Anita in several West Side Story tours, and that was before we realized maybe white people don't need to play Puerto Ricans.
I'm Italian, but okay. Isa joke.
But just like Anita from West Side Story, Maria grew up in Puerto Rico, a bubbly, beautiful, happy girl, and honey, she has freckles, which remember when we were growing up, freckles was like nobody wanted freckles, and now people are painting freckles on their faces on the TikTok.
Yeah, they have filters just called freckles.
Yep.
Everyone all of a sudden wants freckles. I want to message all the gingers that I grew up with and be like, nah, you're cool.
Your time has come.
Well, we're going to learn Maria had a lot of friends, a lot of down bitches in her life, and they're all here. We start with Karen Gardner, and she said that Maria actually had a wonderful childhood, sort of uneventful. She thrived in school, and we see old pictures of her and her adorable little freckle face. She was absolutely beautiful. Another one of her friends, Liz, is here, and Liz explained that Maria's parents divorced when she was young. Listen, Maria had a great childhood, but no matter how happy your family is, divorce always affects a family. And the way it affected Maria specifically was she had just kind of made a promise to herself that when it came time for her to pick a partner and get married, she really wanted to find that everlasting love, and she never wanted to get divorced. I mean, nobody gets married with the intention of getting divorced, but we're going to learn Maria tried everything.
She sure did. I mean, she wanted the man of her dreams, and she wanted to stay happily married.
Maria was going to nursing school in Puerto Rico when she met Joel. She fell in love, of course, and kind of got swept off her feet. She saw a life and a future with Joel.
They specifically say that she fell head over heels, and I think we should change that phrase.
To what?
She fell heels over her head.
Oh, got you.
Because think about it.
I did. I got it.
Yeah.
I'm the target audience for this.
Yeah, that just feels more accurate. Listen, how's old cousin Pluky? Good. She's heels over head in love. Oh, okay, I get it. It makes more sense, right?
Yeah, or in the case of my Aunt Debbie, cankles over ears. Anyway, now Maria's father and sister, they didn't love the age gap between Maria and Joel, but Maria was like, this is my guy. He showers me with love and attention, and fast forward to 2010, they got married.
Yeah, we call that love bombing. But yes, Maria was younger by 10 years. I don't think that's a very big age gap. I mean, you all heard my Spotify song. Like a cougar. So they get married in 2010, and we see their wedding picture, and she looked absolutely beautiful. Now, Joey.
What?
She didn't have waterfall flowers.
No, she didn't.
But you know what she did have?
Tell me.
She had a side swoop.
I love a side swoop.
She had a swoop to the side. It's a side swoop. She had the tendrils. You can't have a side swoop without the tendrils.
No. You know what I miss?
What?
You remember the movie The Scarlet Letter starring one Demi Moore?
Oh, she's beautiful, that one.
Beautiful in that movie. And you know what? There was a whole 2 years at prom where everybody had their hair pulled back in a chignon with two tendrils right above the ear.
Yeah.
Very classy.
Very 90s, but also very Jewish. You know the Jewish? They got the tendrils.
Yeah, you know what I say? Baruch atah Adonai. What do I care?
Listen, if you're not going to have waterfall flowers, you got to have a side swoop. And if you have a side swoop, you got to have the tendrils. And Maria had everything. She had a side swoop and she had the tendrils. And mazel tov.
Maria and Joel had goals to come to the mainland.
Joel was training to become a CRNA,
which stands for College Redeemed Nipple Assistant. Nipple Assistant. Yeah, it's a 2-year program for people with highly sensitive nipples, and you can assist in nippling the public.
He was studying to become a certified registered nurse anesthetist.
As I said, College Redeemed Nipple Assistant.
That is a really good job, because I looked this up. In order to do that, you have to be a registered nurse with a bachelor's in science. Then you have to study critical care. Then you have to complete a doctoral degree in nurse anesthesia.
Nice.
And then you still have to pass an exam. It's almost as good as being a doctor in the sense of it's still a lot of schooling.
It's a lot of schooling, and like you said, it pays really well. Well, fast forward to October 2014, Maria and Joel have a son, and Maria was thrilled. And then by 2016, Joel got a job in Laredo, Texas. And Maria, look, she put her career on hold, right? Because she had been studying to become a nurse. But with the baby, Joel was like, stay home, I can take care of us, and be the sole breadwinner. And she was a stay-at-home mom, which is a very hard job.
It is a very hard job, and it's such a gift. There are so many families that need two incomes.
Yeah.
I mean, she was so grateful to be able to stay home, which she wanted to do. She, of course, loved her career. And I love that for them because there are so many people. Listen, people listening right now, it's like, no, babe, we both have to work. And so Maria also attended church. Her faith was very, very important to her. And she was a part of this sort of women's social group in her church. They would have little outings, and they don't wear side swoops.
No.
You had to wear the side swoops. And so one of our talking heads is the woman that we mentioned before named Karen. And she said that Maria came right up to her asking a bunch of questions because Karen was the pastor's wife at the time. And we see old videos and pictures of them, and they were just DBs. And let me tell you, we're going to learn Karen, she's a DB you want in your life.
Absolutely. A lot of Maria's friends showed up to tell us just how amazing Maria was.
When I first met Maria, I thought she was incredibly bubbly. Maria and Joel seemed to be in a loving marriage. You could have fun with them.
And immediately I was like, she looks like someone we'd be friends with.
You could just tell she was goofy and just smiley and happy and beautiful, the freckles, and just so cute. And Joel seemed to be a very proud father and a really loving and doting partner. And then in 2017, she got pregnant again. And sadly, that pregnancy ended in a miscarriage. And something really, really fucking gross happened.
Yeah, Joel somehow pointed the blame at Maria, that she was responsible for miscarrying the baby. And all I could think was, what kind of fucking monster does that?
What in the frozen you're going to get mad at a miscarriage? So I looked up the stats, and according to the Mayo Clinic, about 10 to 20% of known pregnancies end in miscarriage. I have had a miscarriage. I'm sure many women listening have. It is sad.
Yeah.
It is horrible, but it is never anyone's fault. What are you going to get mad at the sun for giving you a son? But no, you don't get mad at that. This man is why HR was invented. You can just tell. I don't know. Just that immediately, as soon as they said that he harbored any ill will or resentment or anger for a miscarriage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that really took its toll on her because she already felt terrible. But shortly after, Maria became pregnant again. And in 2018, she gave birth to a second son. But here's the thing. Around this time, Maria could really feel Joel starting to pull away. He seemed distant and he was secretive. And she really internalized that. It made her feel like maybe I'm the problem. Maybe I'm doing something wrong. And let me tell you something. As somebody who's been in a relationship, I think I always ran, as far as my attachment style, more secure to like hinging on avoidant. But if you date an avoidant and you stay around, it will turn you into an anxious attachment style. And it just makes you think, well, if I work harder, if I do better, if I look better, they'll give me the attention or the love or the validation that I need. It's a really insidious cycle.
Those seedlings, the seedlings of doubt, they sprout a tree real fucking fast. And Joel was working a lot. He was working overtime. He threw himself into his work. So she was at home a lot. But there were other things, like his body changed.
He started bulking up so fast that it seemed abnormal to me. Both of us suspected there was some supplements going on.
More on that later.
Yeah, I immediately was like, is he on steroids? And I never understand. Steroids is a big thing in the gay community.
Yeah, you've told me that, actually.
And I'm like, why? The steroids are awful for you. They shrink your nuts. They give you back knee and butt knee. Not to mention, it can really damage your heart.
And liver. Isn't it bad for your liver
it's
as well?
It's bad for everything in copious amounts. But, the other thing is that this really painted a picture of who this guy was. Maria's friends were like, this guy would not shut the fuck up about his 5-year plan. If some straight dude, no offense to the 5 that are here, maybe 8 now.
Hey guys, thanks for being here.
But there is nothing worse than meeting like a girlfriend's boyfriend who sits down and is like, hey, how you doing? So yeah, I got this 5-year plan. In 2 years, I'm going to get my Lexus. In 3 years, I'm going to buy that house. I'll be like, in 2 minutes, can you jump off a cliff? I don't give a fuck.
Here's a lovely volcano.
Yeah.
Jump.
You want to bore me to death? Talk about money. I don't care.
And yeah, he seems like a real cool guy. Well, that was January 2019. And kind of out of the blue, Joel asks for a break. He says he's not happy in the marriage and he wanted to move out and stay at a friend's house. And of course, Maria was upset, but she was like, we had 10 really good years. And I don't want to walk away from that. We have these beautiful boys. Maybe he's just going through a midlife crisis. So she didn't really want to pull the plug. And she kind of thought, maybe if I give him what he wants now, he'll clear his head. And remember, their friends told us that she was fairly traumatized about her divorce. And of course, you can't prevent divorce in any way, but she was willing to do anything she could to keep her family together.
And just going back a little bit, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
I want to say that this is not a judgment on Maria in any way, shape, or form. And I also understand, too, like, trying to save your marriage when you have 2 kids with a man, I understand it, right? But let's just say there's no kids involved, right, for you. And your boyfriend says, I think we should take a break. What does a break mean to you? And what are your thoughts on that?
It's dipping your toe in.
Yes.
It's always better to jump in the pool. If it's a cold pool, just jump in. It's always worse to put your toe in and then your legs in and stand there and put your arms together and go, ooh, this is cold. It's going to a breakup.
I agree. I'm like, you are too much of a wuss to pull the trigger. And you want to go out and have your freedom and start playing. And maybe the person who was asked to take a break, maybe that person will be like, I don't want to do this. I'll end it so they don't have to. They don't want to be the bad guy. I just think it's fucking weird. If we're taking a break, we're taking a break forever.
Yeah. If you're packing a suitcase, pack up your books off the shelves and all of your weird man products too, because you need to go.
Sounds to me like you want to go and fuck around.
Right. And it's just a running away from your problems. And I'm not saying that I haven't done that in my life. I have run away from problems before, but it doesn't make it easier. It just makes the trauma time last longer.
I agree.
And it just makes it harder.
Yeah.
He didn't say, let's go to therapy, or I want to try some new sex stuff, or, let's swing. Whatever anyone's solutions are whenever they're in a situation that's not happy, a break, it's not a thing.
Yeah.
Ross and Rachel, you coined that, and I have no desire to follow in your footsteps.
We were on a break.
Maria liked to keep a journal. When Joel started being more distant, it really helped her to get her thoughts on paper.
I only started journaling a couple years ago because I was always too afraid of somebody finding it.
You couldn't write. Wait, what?
2 + 2 is 12. I am smart.
Joey, me frickin' too.
It's a window into your mind. I don't want
Yes.
I don't want you parading around in my mind.
I journaled forever until I lived with a man.
Yeah. Well, we saw one of her entries from this time of their separation, and I'll just read it to you. It says, I want to support him, be there at his lowest, be his rock, because I know he needs it. But how can I support someone who is always making me feel small, a piece of nothing, not enough? That entry alone says a lot.
We've all been there. When someone has to make you feel smaller to make them feel better, it's so freaking hurtful, and it doesn't stop.
Nope.
That person will just keep on digging. So they're in this kind of trial separation phase. He would come in and out, spend time with the boys, and of course with Maria as well. Mostly, he would just show up so that she would do his laundry, get his clothes wet and his dick, because he would say, part of this about, trying to rekindle is you have to have sex with me whenever I want. And you know who didn't like that at all? Down bitch Karen. This is what she has to say.
I told her that it's not your job to do his laundry, and it's definitely not your job to be intimate with him while he's breaking up the marriage.
Down bitch Karen, you are going to show your down bitch self several times in this episode. I've been on both sides. I've been the friend begging the other person to know their worth and to value themselves. And I've been the person that says, you know what, if I just wash his fruit of the looms and, give him good sex, he'll be happy, and it just never works out because when you're on the inside, you can't see outside. And the people looking in, the view is very, very clear. And we've all been there.
Listen, what a partner should do is be like, no matter what, we're a team. And you have to fight. That's the thing. I'm telling you, rom-coms in the 90s ruined it for us because we all thought some man in a limo with flowers was going to climb our fire escape and be like, what does the princess do after, the prince climbs the tower? She saves him right back. Bullshit. Nobody is spilling juice on you in Notting Hill and then you fall in love with a movie star. Bada bing, bada boom. That is not how it works, okay? Relationships don't always look rosy and they're not always fun. But what I want to know with my partner is that when times get tough, when it counts, that you're going to say, hey, we're a team and we're going to work through this together. And if we together figure out that we can't make it work, we're going to find a way to separate amicably and lovingly, not just for us, but for our kids. But that's not what this man was doing. What he was doing was manipulating the fact that Maria was working overtime, desperate. He knew her trauma with divorce. And he was like, I can use this to get what I want out of her. You want me to do your laundry? I do them the old-fashioned way. I beat clothes against a rock down by the lake. I'll do your laundry if you stay in them clothes because I will beat you against a rock till you get some goddamn sense in your head, you turtle turd.
Yeah, and I helped.
In March of 2019, Maria was doing his laundry. She found a plane ticket. She never even knew he went to Spain.
She's like, wait a minute. I am raising your sons, and you left the country? What in the pineapple upside down fuck? First of all, that's not safe. What if there was a fucking emergency? I'm not saying people can't take trips, but the fact that he left the country, crossed borders, crossed a fucking ocean without telling his wife, sir, you are married, and the mother to his children. So she has this information. She's nervous to tell them. Listen, if you have ever caught anyone in a lie, there is excitement about, oh, I'm going to get you. But it's also anxiety filled because you don't know what you're going to say. You want to say the right thing. You want to catch them. But she finally musters up enough courage and basically says, oh, hey, thanks for stopping by. You have whites and colored clothes this week. That sounds great. How many air miles did you have to use to get to Spain, you fucking squirrel dick? And also, why were you in Spain?
Y'all, this man was having a full-on affair.
Oh, by the way, I don't think she probably said dick or fuck.
Yeah.
I think she was like a woman of God. I added those.
Yeah, I know you did, my love.
There you go.
This man proceeds to tell Maria that he is having an affair with the nurse at the hospital that he worked at. Her name is Janet Arredondo, and it's Janet that he took to Spain. Not only is it like, God forbid there was an emergency, you have been dangling a reconciliation over this woman's head while she does your laundry and she gives you conjugal visits. And you have the nerve to take another woman on vacation? Fuck you.
Yeah. 2 little kids, please. That is, you think she wouldn't want a nice trip to Barcelona?
Yeah.
With them? Get fucking real. So Joel comes clean with everything. And he says, you know what? I fucked up. I do want to keep my family together. Please give me another chance. I'm going to make it right.
True to Maria, she gave Joel another chance. She would do anything to get her family back.
We're going to talk about this at the end of the episode, but I've talked to several people around this case, and every person who I talked to mentioned how strong her faith is. And you all know that I am not a person of faith, but I respect that. So I can't really empathize with it. But it did guide her in many of the decisions that she made in her life, and especially with her relationship. She basically was like, nope, I made a vow. I said I was going to be his wife. Sickness, health, good, bad. What are the vows? I don't know. In sunny days, rainy days, it's like rain on your wedding day. Whatever you say in your vows.
Yeah.
but she was committed to it. And so they set on a course to rekindle their relationship and to keep their family together.
But sadly, nothing changed.
Yeah.
Joel ran hot, he ran cold, he was in, he was out. Don't make me quote Katy Perry. And also, Katy Perry, you're a fucking idiot.
You're acting super weird, girl. We can't defend you right now.
It's not about me. It's not about singing my songs. It's about a collective energy in there. It's about us. It's about making space for future women. It's about this wonderful world that we see right out there and appreciating it. This is all for the benefit of Earth.
You did this for yourself. You should have gone to space and stayed there.
I went to space for love. What?
I have never seen a group of out-of-touch women all talk at the same time the way that they all did. And Gail, I am disappointed in you. Anyway.
Very disappointed. And so Joel wanted what most men want. They want their cake and they want to eat it with multiple forks.
All the cakes.
All the cakes. He wanted both women. That is so adorable.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm a big, strapping man now. Have you seen my muscles? Doesn't matter where I got them. Just look at the muscles. I'm enough man for 2 women. That's what I want. Well, in come the down bitches, because one of her best friends, down bitch Liz, was like,
My experience with Joel was that he was emotionally abusive.
now I haven't gone on my narcissist soapbox lately, but I do want to take a minute to explain to anybody who might have wandered in new. Hi, welcome. Please follow us on social media. It can be very difficult when you are experiencing emotional abuse because you feel isolated. Of course she felt isolated. She had little kids at home. She was all by herself. You feel powerless. You feel worthless. And there are so many flags, but again, you don't see it when you're on the inside. And I often refer to the narcissist playbook, and there is one because they all kind of follow the script. And it was very clear that he was manipulative. He was a liar. That comes with the territory. And he knew he had already made her feel small. He had already planted those seeds of doubt, of insecurity, and it was sort of a done deal.
Yeah, he was very aggressive and domineering. So one day, Joel wanted to meet up with Maria, and down bitch Karen was like, girl, I'm going with you. And while they were in line to get a coffee, a man flirted with Maria, and Joel lost his cool. He was livid. And Karen was like, hi, I'm a God-fearing woman. Who the fuck do you think you are? And who are you to talk about right and wrong? Like, he was saying you invite intention with what you're wearing.
Yeah.
Sir, you had a full-on affair and you're stringing this woman along. Let me tell you all the ways I'd like to invite you to go and fuck yourself.
It's so funny because when you said he got angry, I was like, yeah, but he didn't get angry at the dude. He got angry at Maria. And so from then on, Joel was saying, I don't really like that Karen friend of yours. I don't think you should be hanging out with her because you can't be a part of the narcissist society, and you definitely can't go to the softball pickup games unless you isolate your victim.
Yep.
You can't have them hearing outside information from her down bitch friends. So she all of a sudden sees Maria getting these ideas. Or you think you can stand up for yourself? No. So he tried his best to isolate her from the women who were trying to protect Maria.
Exactly. Now, Maria, like we said, she's a devout Christian, and she didn't want to divorce Joel because essentially she was worried that it would be committing a sin. But her friends, like Karen, a minister's wife, was like, listen, if you're referencing the Bible, if we're going by the Bible, you actually have every right to end this.
Listen, Jesus would have been like, girl, fuck that guy. Well, I don't think Jesus said fuck either.
No.
But I don't think Jesus would be mad for you standing up against an emotionally abusive, cheating man.
No, Jesus would have been like, listen, girl, thou art pumping a dryeth willeth.
Yeah.
Okay.
He did talk like that,
He
yeah.
said, girl, thou art dealing with a man who is a few French fries short of a Happy Meal. There's no way to say that in Old English, but you get the point.
Happy mealeth.
Yeah. So one day, Maria and Joel were having a pretty heated argument in their car, and she recorded it without Joel knowing.
Frustration led me to be unfaithful to you in the past?
Maybe.
No, it led me.
Maybe.
You said it
Because I think.
And eventually she gives him an ultimatum. And I just want to say, the clips that we hear, she doesn't raise her voice. She is asserting herself and standing up for herself, no doubt because of the influences of the women who are emboldening her to be like, you deserve better, right? But she says this.
You walk out that door, we're getting a divorce.
All right, fine. You got it.
So now we fast forward to August of 2020.
And we hear more passages from her journal, all essentially saying that this Joel is not the Joel she fell in love with. And, you know, people change. And she is slowly coming to terms with the fact that this might just be the new him, that he's not really working on himself. And, you know, he was living a lie. He's living a double life. And she kind of has to accept it. I mean, that's the part of the stages of grief. Denial is the first one. I have been there. That's the hardest one to get over, in my opinion.
I think most of us have been there where we have fallen in love with someone and there's a day that comes where you realize that the person that they have presented is an act. It's not who they are.
They sent a representative.
It's true. People can only keep up that charade for so long. It is devastating to wake up and realize that you've been in love with a person who doesn't exist. And you fight so hard because you're like, but I see the potential. Maybe they could actually get there. It's excruciating. But unfortunately, people can change, but they're not going to do it for you. They're going to do it when they're good and ready and not a minute sooner. And so I know you've been there. I have definitely been there. And so when I heard her journal entry, it broke my heart because I'm like, we know that pain. We know that pain. I will say, like, the more we hear from Maria, especially in her journal entries, I just keep thinking, like, we would have been friends.
Yeah. So remember how she was in nursing school in Puerto Rico, but if she wanted to be a nurse in Texas, she had to pass the exam there in order to practice nursing there. Because if she's going to raise these boys and she's going to be divorced and she's going to be a single mom, she's got to figure out a way to make it on her own. We see this really sweet home movie of her teaching herself how to play the piano and singing. She was rediscovering herself and passions and learning new things. And she was picking up hobbies. Babe, if you could pick up a hobby and learn something from scratch, what would you do?
Another language.
Oh, okay.
Honestly, I would like to learn Spanish. Do you know that America is quickly becoming...
The dumbest country?
America is becoming very quickly the largest Spanish-speaking country in the world.
Yeah.
I think it's good to know another language. And I would love to be like, listen, I think you should be able to curse everybody out in every language. That's a goal of mine.
Love in any language.
Don't you drag Sandy Patty into this.
Here.
What about you?
Taxidermy. So,
is that a raccoon? I'm gonna stuff it. Oh, your dog Pixie died? Bring it on over. We're gonna have that sucker forever. I'm gonna stuff it. Except I put googly eyes on all of them. It's very funny.
It's my signature. Want to see my pigeons? I just have 47 pigeons.
With googly eyes.
Look what happens when you shake it.
This bitch put googly eyes on my boa constrictor. What the fuck? Just coiled up with a...
Someone please stuff a pigeon and put googly eyes on it. You'll get a free ticket to our live show.
And I made him gay. Push this button and it goes... Anyway, go on.
Anyway, she was just trying to kind of live a new life. She made a YouTube channel where she did makeup tutorials and hair tutorials. She was just beautiful. Actually, she does say something that are words to live by. She says this.
There's nothing like a good mascara.
Honey, you know that annoying question, like if you were on a deserted island, what 3 things would you bring? Mascara, because in the great words of Jen Perry, put on some mascara, you look dead.
You know, all of these things were giving her something to focus on outside of Joel. Outside of this looming divorce. It actually gave her hope because she could finally begin to imagine what a second lease on life looked like.
Yeah.
So then in September of 2020, Maria found Joel's phone and she went through it, which, listen, for me, I think if you have to go through your partner's phone, that relationship is done.
Did it.
Yeah, well,
It was done.
yeah, well, unfortunately, I did the same. But yes, we've all been there. But she went with her gut. And she read the messages between Joel and his mistress, Janet, and realized, oh, they are in a full-on sexual relationship. And that is when Maria confronted Joel. Actually, I think we have a clip of what she said after learning this information.
There is nothing to fling you out of the denial stage like seeing something in black and white because you just can't excuse it. So then Joel makes one final play and he says, fine, I will stop seeing Janet for real this time. I don't want to lose you. And he goes on to say, you know what? I am so serious about this time. Let's move away from everything. Let's move away from Janet. Let's move to Dallas. And of course, Maria is still hurt and angry, but that's a huge gesture. And she's saying, okay, if he's willing to move away, that's really appealing. He's never said that before. So that felt real to her. And I can sit here and I can judge and just say, no, girl, he's going to lie again. He's going to lie again. It's just another tactic. But the chemicals in our heart and our brain, they don't always have press conferences.
No, they don't.
Sometimes the heart's like, I'm going to go do this. And the brain's like, what the fuck are we doing?
Yeah.
And vice versa. And unfortunately, Maria loved this man. She just did.
Well, he knew exactly what to say to her. I'm telling you, I would bet all of my money and my cats.
Oh, dear.
That this man was an expert manipulator.
Yeah.
He knew every button to push. And unfortunately, even if they did move, which they didn't, even if you do move, the problems go with you. Have y'all not seen Yellow Jackets? Once you leave the wilderness goes back with you to New Jersey. And this only means something to a handful of people, but it means something.
And that's Kat. So it's September 19th, 2020. And Maria tells down bitch Karen about this. And of course, Karen is already like, really wants her out. She says,
Maria was very excited to tell me about how their marriage was going to turn around. And so we agreed to meet. However, before she came to my house, she gave me a phone call and said that she was going to be late.
because I was just talking to Joel on the phone and I heard a dog barking. You know who has a dog? That bitch Janet. If he is lying again, I want to catch him in the act. I want to put a stop to this once and for all. And down bitch Karen, even though she was all for Maria moving on to the next phase of her life and leaving Joel in the fucking dust where he belongs, down bitch Karen was like,
Girl, don't do it. It's not worth it.
she basically said, he's just going to manipulate you. Nothing good is going to come of it. But Maria can't help herself. My God, have we all been there?
Oh, she was fucking livid.
Yeah.
So she does. She goes to Janet's, and what does she see when she pulls up? Joel's car. So she rings the doorbell, and Janet has a Ring camera. She's not answering the door, but she's talking to Maria through the Ring camera. And she's like, you gotta go. You gotta leave. You can't be here. I'll call the cops. And Maria's like, I'm not leaving until Joel comes out here and talks to me. She was fuming. She had enough, right? I mean, any person, I don't care how hopeful you are that your marriage will work out. I don't care how optimistic you are. I don't care how much you love God. Everyone has their breaking point. Finally, Joel came out to talk to her, and he says, I want to be with Janet. This is hours after telling Maria something totally different. This man is human garbage.
I know, we all know this guy. I would rather lean my vagina on a cactus than have any type of man like this in my life again. I feel so bad for her. So obviously, Maria's pissed. She's like, I was just on my way to coffee. I was about to sit down with my fucking Starbucks and tell Karen about how we're going to start this new life together. And Joel's like, you know what? Let's go to the park and talk about this privately. Well, that conversation didn't go well.
When Maria and Joel were at the park, he got so angry that he smashed her windshield with his fist, and it just shattered.
We see the picture of this cracked window. And I heard something not too long ago. It's something like men who do that, who punch walls, who break doors, they want to do that to you.
Yeah.
And they know they can't, so they do it to an inanimate object.
Yeah.
It was much more eloquent in the quote that I heard, but it just made so much sense. You punch a wall
Yeah.
so that you don't punch a woman in the face and go to jail, but the intention is still there.
Yeah, I think he really thought Maria was just going to be there and that she would continue to take it. And I think that conversation, I think Maria showing up at Janet's house, I believe he realized he was losing his grip of control on her. And whatever was said, Joel lost his mind. But meanwhile, back at Mistress Janet's house, she done called the cops and reported Maria for trespassing. And I'm just going to say this because we learned more information about her after, so I don't feel bad saying this. There is a special place in hell for folks who knowingly date a married person with the intention of breaking up their marriage and subsequently their family. It is evil. I wrote a song about it. You want to hear it?
Yeah.
Goes like this. You're a cunt. That's it. That's the whole song.
Oh,
yeah.
Right. I love the chorus. Joey and I were talking about this on camera because every once in a while, a story really grabs me. And I'll talk about it at the end of the episode. And Joey and I gave grace to Janet and said, maybe she's a victim too. Maybe he was lying to her, manipulating her. That's not the case.
Nope.
But we just know that we did give her grace initially.
Yep.
I just want that disclaimer because we were like, that bitch. And then we were like, well, not the case. Put a pin in that. We get body camera footage of the interaction.
Hello, ma'am. Your call, please?
Yes, I did.
What's going on? You're gonna get up. What happened?
I had a woman come by that she was already told not to.
And there's more.
So I had already filed a...
Trespass warning?
Yes.
Okay.
She was here, she was asked to leave, she refused, so I called you guys.
So the police call Maria on her cell phone.
Hey, I'm talking to you right now.
Oh, are you angry, everyone listening? Because I am. It gets worse.
Hang up the phone.
I guess that's your boyfriend.
Yeah.
So the cop calls back, and it goes straight to voicemail. Meanwhile, we see on the body cam footage that Janet is texting. Well, she's texting Joel, saying, shut up. That's the police calling. They can hear you. So when they call back, Joel answers, and he's cool, calm, and collected.
Yeah, listen to this one.
Hello.
Hello, yes, sir. I'm looking for Maria Munoz.
Yeah, she's here. I'm having a conversation with her.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the screaming part isn't how conversations go, but carry on.
This is Officer Jalomo, Laredo PD, sir.
Yeah,
I'm calling on behalf of Janetta Redondo. Can I speak to her?
sure.
Thank you.
Obviously, Janet has tipped Joel off, being like, calm it the fuck down, that the cops are calling you. So Joel had plenty of time to put his other mask on and be the nice guy, a totally different person.
So after all of this, Maria goes to her friend Karen's house, and Maria's hysterical. She told Karen, I am done. I am absolutely done. I'm getting a divorce. I can't do this anymore. I'm sure she was humiliated, right?
Down bitch Karen says, yes, she was angry and humiliated, but more than anything, she was sad. She was so hurt. But remember, feeling sad about a decision doesn't mean it's the wrong decision, and Maria knew that.
Well, the next day, best friend Karen saw Maria at church, and Maria was still determined to get a divorce, although she was distraught over that choice. And later that Sunday, Maria decided to send a text to Joel, and it said, I'm going to respect your choice. I will not bother you guys anymore. I don't want you to think I want to destroy you in any way. So we can go together to a lawyer. And of course, Joel, always trying to control the narrative, responds with, we can do this with minimal lawyer intervention. It's too much money.
Right. He wants to control the narrative, but remember, this man was obsessed with money. He was working overtime. He had his 5-year plan. And I speak from experience when I say the only person who wins in a trial divorce is the lawyers. And so I can agree with him on that, but his motives are completely guided by wanting ultimate control of everything, not only the narrative, but of their finances.
Well, narcissists hate to be painted as the bad guy.
Yep.
They cannot assume responsibility. It's a hallmark of narcissism. And
Yep.
they will go to great lengths. It doesn't matter if you put all the proof in front of them as to why they're an asshole. They will take that proof and turn the tables on you and make you the asshole. That's why they say when you're dealing with a narcissist, the best way to get to a narcissist is to cut off access to you. Period.
No contact.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so the other side of this is Maria is a good person. I really believe that she was like, I just want help with the kids. I don't want your money, because she was a determined person. But I don't think that Joel believed that. And what he was trying to do, because he knew if she wanted to, she had all the proof she needed to say, this man is an adulterer, he cheated on me, and she could rake him over the coals, which
Yep.
honestly, do it.
Yeah. I feel like we're a little bit more petty and vindictive than sweet Maria was, my love.
Yeah.
But the very next day, he sends a very loving, calm email. Let's sit and have a heart-to-heart. And Maria is totally wooed by it. And down bitch Karen is like,
The lie detective determined that was a lie.
she's like, girl, you know he is lying. She is not believing anything, but Maria is still determined to be amicable, to hear him out. So they were going to meet that night at Maria's house at 7 p.m. And down bitch Karen was like,
I told her to contact me as soon as he arrived, as soon as he left.
can you FaceTime me? Put the phone down. Can you put the Ring camera in there? Karen was so nervous. Do you want me to come hide under a pile of laundry and take notes, whatever you want me to do? Maria agrees to this. And he was supposed to come at 7. 7 o'clock rolls around, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock rolls around. Karen hasn't heard anything. So it's 9:30 and she says, how's it going? Is it done? And she texts back, he just got here. Please pray for me. We'll talk about that later. So we're to assume the night started at about 9:30.
So Karen says, I did pray for her, but then I didn't hear from her. So around 1:30 a.m. on September 22nd, Joel calls 911, and we hear that phone call.
911, what's the address of emergency?
Hello. I called my wife on responses, and kind of scared if she's not breathing.
This is the call we don't want to hear, and it keeps going.
She may have taken some pills.
Okay, sir. And do you know what kind of pills they were?
Yeah, clonazepam.
Now, Officer Gregorio de la Cruz, he was the first one to arrive on the scene, and we see his body cam footage.
And so we see Joel go into the house and lead the officer to Maria laying on the ground unresponsive. And we see the officer say, what happened? And Joel is explaining that she's been so depressed and she took this clonazepam. I don't know what happens. We also see the paramedics get to the scene and administer CPR with no results. And it was there at 1:50 a.m. that they pronounced Maria deceased.
Which is absolutely heartbreaking. Now, Officer De La Cruz is speaking with Joel, and he says in his interview, he's here, he says, I was immediately suspicious of him. His pupils were huge. And we see Joel on the body cam, just big old fake crocodile tears. He is profusely sweating. That is something that the officer commented on. He was like, he was just sweating. And I've seen better school acting in an after-school special, and that ain't saying much. So
Yeah.
they sit down with Joel, and he keeps saying the same thing. She's been super depressed. I don't live here anymore, and I have been ignoring her. And the officer is thinking, if you don't live here, what are you doing here at 1 a.m?
And he says, well, I came over to talk and we ended up having sex and I took a shower and I know she's been doing this clomazepam and she was laying down and I thought she just took too much. And then he starts crying and down bitch Officer Gregorio says this.
And she just...
He starts crying, but it's a really fake cry.
Oh, you picked up on that too? Yeah, same.
He said that chuckling. It was just ridiculous.
So right on the body cam footage, we see Officer Gregorio say to the other officers, it's a 37. And they have a little police code that, us civilians aren't supposed to know. And basically it means like, what the fuck is this guy talking about? We need a fake language.
Yeah.
We need to be like, it's the eighth of the flip-flop and the skibbity-hop, Joseph.
You know I can't do that. You know that if there's a problem, I'll look at you and be like, Jesus, Lord! God! Fix it!
We need a secret magic language.
Yeah, I mean, there were so many red flags to Officer Dela Cruz. And also one of them was he said, after I found her, I just thought she was knocked out, so I just did my thing. You did your thing? What was your thing at 1 a.m.? Side note, I just want to say this. If he did have sex with her, knowing that he was going to kill her, you are disgusting.
Very Chris Watts. So now we meet another down bitch, more at the end of the episode. We meet Detective Mara, and he said he got to the scene at about 2 a.m., did a quick walkthrough of the home. Of course, he sees poor Maria there, and he's been told about this alleged overdose, that she overdosed on this bottle of pills. We actually see the bottle of pills, and the prescription was actually for Joel. And he makes a really immediate assessment and says, one hallmark of somebody who is overdosed is they're foaming at the mouth. And this is not happening with poor Maria. And so they do a quick overlook of her body, and they did see a puncture wound in her arm, like a needle in her arm, something that would look like, in your arm when you draw blood.
Yeah.
And then on further examination of the home, they found a big old bottle of medical supplies, and we see a picture. There's needles, catheters, a bunch of pill bottles of different medications. And then what are the liquid medication things?
The vials.
Tons of vials. So Joel's story is not adding up. If they were only mildly suspicious before, they are wildly suspicious now.
So Detective Mata is like, there is just so much more to this story than Joel is sharing. So at this point, Joel volunteers to go to the police station to be interviewed. And we see him in the interrogation room. And this man is going for an Oscar. He's yelling and fake sobbing, pushing the table, screaming, and an officer comes in to be like, hey, buddy, pipe down. You're doing the most.
Yeah.
And so Detective Mata sits down with Joel, and Joel is like, Maria has been so depressed. If I had a nickel for every time we hear this man say how depressed Maria was. He also says we were separated and she was just really struggling with that. She also had run out of the medication she was taking for her depression at the time, which was clonazepam. Is that what it is?
Clonazepam?
Yeah. And
someone will correct us.
It is clonazepam. And he's like, well, I had just gotten my prescription filled and, so I gave her a couple, but then when I left the room, I came back, I realized she took my entire bottle with the intention of ending her life. And that's when the interrogation takes a very interesting turn.
The detective was like, yeah, cool story, bro. We found this mark on her arm. Did you inject her with anything? And of course, he denies it. And the detective tells us that by the time the interview had concluded, he was certain that Maria did not die by suicide. And he didn't even think she took any pills. Because remember, this guy is a nurse anesthetist. Not only do you have those medications readily available, you also know how to administer them. You also know what could potentially be a fatal cocktail of all these things to stop someone's heart. But my guy, if you went to all that schooling that I mentioned earlier in the episode, you're not an idiot, right? You know there's a thing called a toxicology report. Are you sticking to that story? Well, he was, but it doesn't change the fact that now they think they are actually dealing with a murder. However, on that day, they didn't have any evidence to hold him, so Joel was released after the interview.
Yeah, not on the episode. Another thing here to consider that they were aware of is that Maria was right-handed. Her puncture wound was on her right arm. Why wouldn't she use her dominant hand on her left arm if she was going to inject herself? None of it made sense. So the next morning, Maria's best friend Karen hears the news.
He told me that the police had let him know that Maria was deceased. And I remember just screaming out, oh my God, he's killed her.
All of her friends said that. They knew it was him. And I really thought about, my heart broke for Karen because she did her best to protect her, to be there for her, and there's only so much you can do. To think like she was like, I would be there if I could. Like, what do you need me to be there when you meet? And to see your best friend get so close to escaping the grip of a sociopath, only to succumb to it. It's just heartbreaking. So then Karen got wind that the police were investigating this as a possible suicide. And that's when she was like, nope, I am going to say something. And she tells the cops, that is not what happened. She would never do that. All of her friends were like, Maria had been planning her future. She was in love with her 2 sons. She wouldn't leave them.
The authorities have no choice but to carry on with the idea that this was a suicide until the toxicology report comes in. So in January of 2021, because toxicology reports take so goddamn, I'm opening up a 24-hour toxicology company.
Yeah.
Let's do a fucking GoFundMe. Everyone put $1 in. We're going to make this happen so these people don't have to wait for these reports to come in.
Yeah, I think you should call it, let's wrap this shit up laboratories.
The fuck you say? I'll see about that. Laboratories.
Well, in January of 2021, they finally get the results. And it's now that we meet Chief Assistant District Attorney Maricela Jackman, and she's here. And let me tell y'all, Maricela, she is a down bitch. Very smart. Ellen had a whole ass conversation with her that we will get into, but she is something really, she's really incredible.
I need to send her some merch. You all, I'll talk about it at the end of the episode, but I'll just say I talked to Maricela for an hour and 32 minutes today.
Yeah, she did.
She is a down bitch.
Well, she says the first thing that we looked for was how much clonazepam is in Maria's system. Y'all, she had none.
Survey says
absolutely none. What they did find was Versed, ketamine, morphine, propofol, Narcan, lidocaine, and Demerol. All drugs used for anesthesia.
What in the Michael Jackson fuck? And I say that because though there's a lot of speculation around what happened to Michael Jackson, me being one of them, he was murdered. That is what was found. The propofol is exactly what was found in Michael Jackson's systems. The only medication I wasn't familiar with was the Versed, and I looked it up. It's more commonly known as midazolam. It's a benzodiazepine, and it helps you relax or sleep before a surgical procedure. It basically helps calm your nervous system down. That will be important for later. So, all to say, Joel had access to all of these medications. But here's the thing about the propofol, and this is actually something I did not know. Propofol gives you an immediate reaction. As soon as it hits your bloodstream, you fall asleep. So what they can garner from that is you can't give yourself propofol. So again, another clue, we are not dealing with a suicide. This is absolutely a murder.
Yeah, even if she had attempted to intravenously give herself a large dosage of propofol, she would have fallen asleep very quickly and the needle or the IV would still be in her arm. And so at this point, the prosecution believed that they had what they needed to prove that this was a homicide.
Joel Pellot was arrested and charged with the murder officially on January 16th, 2021.
Joel Pellot's trial started March 20th of 2023.
And this piece of shit had the nerve to plead not guilty.
What a fucking waste of time, resources, air. Put that man in a fucking cage. Well, y'all, strap down your titties. This trial doesn't start until March of 2023. Gotta love that justice system. So what could possibly be this man's defense? Great question. I would love to tell you. Well, of course, Maria was on drugs. She abused drugs. She was on marijuana. I didn't say that in the episode, but that's what he said. And all of these other over-the-counter prescription drugs. She was so depressed, Joey. She was so depressed. She was using drugs. And then she ultimately wanted to die by suicide because of the depression. Remember, Joey? She was so depressed.
So depressed.
And so his story does change a little bit. He's like, okay. Here's the story. I did give her an injection because when I found her, she was already deceased, and I gave her an injection to revive her and bring her back to life. What magical drugs were you using to revive your wife, sir? Please enlighten us.
I was just like, how could the defense roll with that? Because I'm no doctor and I'm no gynecologist.
Not anymore. You've been disbarred.
Not since the thumb accident. But when... I don't even know what that means. But like, I have never in my life, it doesn't make any sense that you would revive a person with sedatives? Well, on what planet is that a thing? Now, what the defense didn't count on was Maria's journals. She had chronicled everything, and not once had she indicated that she was thinking of ending her life. Of course, she documented what a hard time she had, but there was so much hope in her entries. In fact, her journal did the opposite of painting her as a person wanting to end her life. It painted a picture of a woman who was fighting for her marriage, and when she realized that she was the only person in that fight, she was determined to create a new and better life for her and her children. So it didn't matter what the defense said, even in death. Maria was able to speak what was on her heart. She was able to defend herself and where she was in life from the fucking grave.
I want to play the voiceover of one of her journal entries for you.
Today my head will not look down. Today I will conquer. Today I am free.
And then Maria goes on with her affirmations.
I am strong. I am confident. I am enough.
They read these journals aloud to the jury, and they were able to conclude suicide was not an option. Of course she was sad. You're allowed to be sad. But that is not the reason she's no longer here. And it's giving very How I Caught My Killer, because Maria was there in the courtroom. I'll talk to you about my conversations with the prosecutor, but she was sharing her, oh God, I have chills. This case really got me today, you all. She was sharing her hope for the future, and she was there in that trial. But here is the clincher statement for me.
I love my life. I love who I am becoming.
And the fact that vapid, pathetic, empty motherfucker could sit there and lie about his wife's state of mind or how she died is disgusting. But you can't lie about what she put in print, my guy.
Nope.
Because she fucking solved her own fucking murder.
I mean, really what we see in those journal entries is what we all hope for ourselves in the hardest times of our lives, which is that you can blossom in the face of adversity. And that's what she was doing.
And you can try your best to silence women, but trust and believe we're always going to find a way to talk and communicate, even if it's from another plane.
Yeah. Well, Chief Assistant District Attorney Maricela is back, and she said the prosecution we needed to lay out as much as we could in regard to the history of Maria and Joel's relationship. They got a hold of that video on Maria's phone that she had taken without Joel's knowledge. The one where Maria said, if you walk out that door, we're getting a divorce, and Joel, all he could say was, fine, fuck you. They also presented their theory of what happened that night.
So the prosecution puts this together. It was the night of September 21st, 2020. Joel went to Maria's home from work, still in scrubs, which Maricela added also gives him credibility. Oh, he's a doctor. He's in the medical field, right? He intentionally went over there with scrubs. He had come, obviously had the drugs, the IV equipment. Well, something else in her system that came through the toxicology report was a high amount of caffeine. They thought Joel would have showed up with a cup of coffee. Remember, he showed up really late, 9:30. Why would anyone have those levels of caffeine at 9 p.m.? That's not left over from your morning cup or your afternoon cup.
He probably showed up with a cup of coffee. He likely included the oral anesthetic drugs, and that would have incapacitated her.
Because she didn't have any defensive wounds on her.
No.
How else would he have gotten the IV in the arm? No one is going to willingly give their arm. So something had to have delayed her senses or made her numb in some way, because she did not fight back.
Yeah.
There was nothing on her that indicated that she put up any kind of a fight. And then if she was incapacitated, he would have no problem administering the cocktail sedative that ultimately killed her.
Yeah, that's what they think. They think that once she passed out, he administered a lethal dose of lidocaine, propofol, Narcan, and Demerol intravenously. Now, DA Maricela said that the amount of anesthetics she had in her system were enough for 2 major surgeries.
That's insane.
His intention was to murder her. And in the prosecution's closing statement, they read from Maria's journal. She said this, and I have to tell you, it brought tears to my eyes because this was somebody who was fighting for her happiness. It says, "No matter what happens, I will be fine. I will not put my head down. I will hold it high. I am unique. No one is me, and that is my superpower. I am enough and all I need. I will always push and thrive. I will shine bright like a diamond in the sky, the woman who never gave up." How could anyone think that somebody who was putting those words to paper was contemplating taking her own life? And that was an entry right before she passed.
Yeah, this woman solved her own case because this piece of shit was sentenced to life in prison. He will be eligible for parole in 2053. We see his pathetic mugshot. Nobody gives a shit about you. And, you know, down bitch Karen, of course she's happy he's behind bars. Justice has been served. But I will never understand when we see women who constantly every day die at the hands of their partners, they leave their babies to be orphaned.
Yeah.
There's nobody to take care of them. And, you know, all of her friends are attesting to what a manipulator Joel was. All this woman wanted was a family and happiness, and she did everything under the sun to get all of that. File this under the list of women who have lost their life to a man who just can't fucking get his shit together and can't be challenged and just can't fucking exist without controlling every aspect of their life. It breaks my heart.
It's really devastating. And I will say, her friends just at the end also say,
She became like a sister to me. She always lifted my spirits, even when she was the one with tragedy in her life.
That is true friendship, and that is love. So I know we've got so much to say. I did some research. You did some research. You talked to everybody who worked on this case, and I talked to my sister. So I was really curious about Joel's mistress, Janet Arredondo. Now, she said that she thought Joel and Maria were in the process of divorcing. And police eventually did not believe that she was involved with the murder. But she did testify after making an agreement with the prosecution that her statements would not be used against her later in a criminal proceeding. More on that later. This is an article published from LMT Online. Janet testified she became romantically involved with Joel in October 2018, around the time his second son was born. She said she knew he was married, and by March and August 2019, they had been on 2-week vacations to Spain, Greece, and France. They had discussed marriage, but never made any solid plans. So the night that Maria died, Janet was at her house and learned about the investigation into Maria's death after she was alerted by Laredo police the morning after on September 22nd at 6 a.m. Joel had been living with Janet for several months by that time, and when she saw him next after being at the police station, he asked her to delete the surveillance footage from her Ring camera on the night of September 21st and September 22nd. Now, badass Maricela Jackman, the assistant DA, asked Janet about the anesthetic drugs she kept in her home at the time. Janet testified that she kept the drugs in her closet and that she got them from Joel, who got them from work. She testified that both of them, Janet and Joel, would use the drugs recreationally, administering to themselves or each other at times. They kept Versed, propofol, ketamine, fentanyl, lidocaine, morphine, and Demerol. Now, Janet said she began using anesthetic drugs recreationally when she met Joel, and she said that Joel would use Versed, ketamine, and sometimes morphine, which immediately said to me, when he went and murdered her that night, he was high. Because remember, Officer De La Cruz was like, he looked high as fuck.
Mm-hmm.
So when Janet saw Joel after he was at the police station when he volunteered to talk to them, she testified that Joel admitted to her that he removed the IV catheter from Maria's arm, before the ambulance arrived at her house. Then Janet goes on to say that while she and Joel were driving, she asked, "Did you throw that catheter in the sewage?" Because we were driving past it, and he said something like, "That would have been a good idea," or something along those lines. The rest of her testimony was not heard by the press because they were no longer allowed in. Their time to be in there had expired.
Don't worry, we're getting those transcripts. More on that in a minute. Well, Joel appealed his conviction because, of course, he did. Bitch, sit down. Nobody gives a fuck. I read through his ridiculous appeal, and the three main points that I noticed were he was fighting was insufficient evidence. What?
They had all the evidence.
You sound stupid as your plan. And a trial court's error in denying his motion to suppress, and the trial court's refusal to include a lesser offense. Bitch, shut down. Shut it down. Just a month ago, his conviction, it remains in place. His sentencing and conviction remains in place. I want to point out something really important. The prosecution team on this case had an actual daunting task. The way that they laid this out, it seemed very open and shut. I'm going to tell you why it wasn't open and shut. They had to prove that the jurors that Joel had the means and the motive to murder his wife, right? This prosecution team, all female. Women of Hispanic and Latin descent, I'd like to recognize them. I'm getting choked up. Maricela Jackman, who we saw in the show, she was the Chief Assistant District Attorney, as well as Ana Karen Garza, Chief Assistant Prosecutor for the 406th District, Assistant DA Karina Rios, and Crystal Calderon. And so I spoke to a lot of people today. Like I said, this case really got me. I spoke to Ana Karen. I left a message with Karina. I'm going to be speaking with her tomorrow. And I spoke, like I said, over an hour and a half to Maricela. I also spoke to Detective Mata's assistant, this wonderful woman named Ashley. I'm also going to be speaking to him. And let me tell you my first takeaway in speaking to all these people today. And Joey will attest because he sat in on the conversation, my second conversation with Maricela today. Everyone I spoke to had the time. They all had the time to speak about this case. Because all the women on this case, including the two clerks, had some frame of reference to speak about being in a DV situation. And these are Hispanic women, and I looked this up, and when I told Maricela and Ana Karen this stat, they didn't even know. Hispanic women make up 10% of practicing attorneys in the entire state of Texas. And there were 4 of them. Wow. Representing Hispanic women. And I think that's really beautiful. We have to do a whole separate episode because Maricela gave me so much information. I'm going to be talking to her tomorrow. There were so many things uncovered. So Karina was their online expert, and she was the one who poked a hole in the theory that Joel said he had been administering CPR to her for 15 minutes. That's what he told the cops. I was trying to revive her. I was giving her CPR. Karina was able to get the notifications from the email of the alarm system that said he had gone in and out of the garage like 6 or 7 times. Bitch, what are you doing in the garage? When you said you were giving CPR, he didn't give her CPR. And the things that they were able to uncover online, all kinds of things, were nothing short of brilliant.
I wonder if that's why he got the tampering with evidence charge, because during that time, if he was going back and forth from the garage, he was probably hiding things.
Yes, very much so. But all to say, you weren't administering CPR. Karina also uncovered a ton of information from the cloud and social media and texts, because it all pointed to suicide. The prosecution is the one that ordered the toxicology reports. The prosecution, they had a daunting case against them. They really did. They really went the extra mile for this woman. There was also a note found on the counter that wasn't entered into evidence. There was a lot of things that they didn't even get entered into evidence that they had researched. They had researched this case for over 6 months. I recorded all of the conversations. I'm going to see if we can include it in a bonus episode because there was truly so much information. And when I spoke to Ashley, she told me unprompted, I said, you know, Detective Mata really had some amazing instincts. And she said, he is the most wonderful man. He is fighting tooth and nail to bring more awareness to domestic violence situations. This case has stayed with every single person I spoke to today. And usually I just call people to verify facts and see if there's anything else that they want to add. It's usually maybe a 5 or 10 minute conversation. You sat there for most of the conversation with Maricela. She had the time, and so did Anna Karen, so did everyone who I've spoken to. And the main thing that everyone said was her journals. She had tons of journals, and they combed through everything, and they all individually said, we were Maria's voice.
Yeah.
And Anna Karen told me today, usually when they have a group chat about a case, they'll name it the case. The group chat will be named, the state versus Joe Schmo. And she said for the first time ever, the name of our group chat was Team Maria. Whew. Because they all felt like they knew her through her words, through her journal, and they felt like when they were fighting for her, that they were fighting for a woman that they knew.
Yeah.
And it's because they did know her, because she is every woman that has been in a situation like that. And all of these women had some experience. They didn't go into details, but they said, yeah, we know what that feels like. So not only did they get to know her through her words, but they all understood where she was coming from. And each one of them said, we don't know how and we don't know why, but she loved that man. She loved him, and she was always coming from a place of love. And I was so grateful for their thoughtful time they gave me today, because they did not have to do that. I cold call these people. They don't know. They see a random number pop up. They don't know who I am. And they all had the time. And I have said this, and it is a common misconception, so I don't feel like I'm overstating, that a lot of people believe that if you are not being physically abused, you are not being abused. And there is no shame in that thought. But emotional and verbal abuse is abuse. If you feel like this rings true to you, or you are afraid of someone, please call 1-800-799-SAFE, 1-800-799-7233. Maricela would love to have a sit down with us, so look for some bonus with that. Was there anything you got from that call? Because you sat in on that last one.
Yeah, I just thought it was amazing, because you would think that watching this episode that it would be an open and shut case of homicide, and she was like, it was the opposite. And I loved when she said things like, we had to be super strategic about when we said certain things, like the caffeine thing, right?
Oh, yeah, I forgot. The caffeine was all them. Tell them. Yeah, I forgot that part.
Because they were able to come up with the idea that he most likely came over with a cup of coffee that had Versed, ketamine, and morphine in it, right?
Well, they picked up on that, because every single person they talked to said, oh, yeah, I go out to coffee with Maria, or we were out to coffee. This woman loved her Starbucks.
Yeah, and that's what they're saying. Like, we wanted to make sure that the jury understood it wouldn't be odd for her to have a cup of coffee at 9:30, because first of all, Joel knew that she loved coffee, but we also wanted to say, like, yeah, she was always having coffee with friends, so that people knew this was a normal thing in her life. And it's just another thing that Joel took advantage of. I thought that was really brilliant. But
that whole narrative was realized by that team of 4 amazing women, because she didn't have defensive wounds.
Yeah.
And they were like, how on earth could he have gotten an IV into her arm? That didn't make sense, and leaned more towards the suicide narrative.
Well, I'll tell you, my biggest takeaway from the conversation with Maricela was, what a heart of gold. Because there are people who get into politics, law enforcement, all kinds of, different occupations that require empathy, that require seeing good in people, that require fighting for justice without reward. And this woman, she even said, I tell my kids, they're like, don't you ever get tired of this? It must be exhausting. How do you do it? And she's like, it never feels like a day of work when you do what you love.
Yep.
She is very passionate about it. And I was like, man, if God forbid something happened to me or someone I loved, this is the person I would want fighting on their behalf.
You know, and I told her, I said, you know, I've told hundreds of these stories and they don't get easier. It's always hard, but there was something about this story. And then when I was talking to everyone today, I realized everyone felt that way.
Yeah.
Everyone saw themselves in Maria. Anybody can see themselves in Maria.
I can.
Yeah, there's more to the story. We're going to have to do some kind of amendment episode because there are so many people that want to talk about this. And I think there's a resurgence in the story because his appeal was just denied. I mean, thank fucking God. I hope really, really bad things are happening to you in prison. And I know I'm not supposed to say that, but guess what? I don't give a fuck. And I have a microphone. Joey, say something funny.
Well, I have something that I would like to say to Joel, but I'm going to let Rue McClanahan, who played the effervescent Blanche Devereaux on Golden Girls, say it for me.
Eat dirt and die, trash.
I think that about sums it up.
All right, down bitches. This was a hard one, but more information. I don't know in what way. Maybe we'll do a live. Maybe we'll do a Zoom. But lots of people want to talk about this case, and I'm so honored we got a chance to talk about it, and I'm so grateful that so many people were generous with their time with me today. Don't forget to check us out on the Patreon, patreon.com/IThinkNot, and tell them how they can find us, Joey.
Well, you can find us on all social media platforms at I Think Not Pod. You can also subscribe, like, and comment on our YouTube videos, where you can also find us at I Think Not Pod. Parker's out there doing the Lord's work. Both Rick and Henry are just killing our episodes, and Jeff, like, we're so lucky. We are really surrounded by very talented people who get us. Harris, I don't know how you got this job.
I don't know. We need to have a chat.
Don't ever leave us. I
point.
love you. I love you.
You can also follow us on Instagram and TikTok, I Think Not Pod. And don't forget to join the discussion on our Facebook group. We're in there all the time. Sometimes we're laughing, sometimes we're crying. It just depends on the day or maybe even the time of day. I Think Not Pod Facebook discussion group. And we have some very big announcements coming up you're definitely not going to want to miss, right, Joey?
That's right. And you can keep up to date with all of our announcements in our Facebook group. And I just want to pop in real fast to say this. This is not a judgment on anyone, including you or me, because I judge myself at times. I just want to tell you, if you find yourself in a relationship and no matter what, if you love them, if it's not a fuck yes, it's a fuck no. That's what I want to say.
I think that's a good way to end it. Until next time, I love you, Joey.
I love you too, you and Marie Motion. I love you, DB.
I love you, dumb bitches. Bye.
Maria.
I'm reluctant to tell you this because I don't want you to get mad at me, but you did say big old bottle of medical supplies when I think you meant to say bag.
Joey has just informed me that I said big old bag of medical supplies.
No, you said big old bottle.
A big old bottle of medical supplies. You all, I have said this before. When I speak, it's your responsibility to translate. I can't be everything to everyone. I can't do it all.
Yeah.
I want to know you're all okay with that.
Yeah, I'm not asking you to be every woman. We've got Shaka Khan for that.
There's only so much I can do. I'm only one person. And if they've been here, they're like, oh, Ellen. Her brain, sometimes it goes haywire. And that's why we love you, down bitches. Thank you for being here.